Wait, where'd you go? You're supposed
And we're live. No, I had to press the button because we had an ask to record these onto our podcast.
Oh.
So we are live on YouTube and we'll be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. And then we will also be on our Feed the Good Wolf podcast so people can listen to it in their automotive vehicles. That's what someone requested. So I'm going to try to do that every time. If I forget to press record on the audio mixer, where we won't have it. So hopefully I don't forget to press record.
Where's Harley and Noah at?
I don't know.
We moved this.
Yeah,
right?
they were pro democracy for them. Yeah.
Hey, don't throw them under the bus. They try. And they said too, maybe
Harley specifically picked this time.
True.
What the heck?
All right. CJ, Sienna Wilkening, she beat Cody this time. Entered the chat.
Give her the gold medal.
Oh, how do I do that? Can I do that? Let's see. I don't know.
Oh, Harley's home. He's coming. Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know how to give her gold medal, but she got a good gold medal. All right, guys. Off season and games prep. Oh, he got a flat tire on his way home. Oh my gosh.
That's a bummer.
I thought they were like Batmobiles where like you roll it over and then the wheel goes and then there's like a new tire.
Yeah.
Which Batman is that? Is that Batman Returns where that happens with the Batmobile?
I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it.
It's like an older Batman. I hope it's not like
it's the Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I hope not, dude. Or the George Clooney one. Those should be erased from the earth. Fight me on it. I mean, no hate to those two guys, but like bros.
Weren't you wasn't
they
Cody
were
just
terrible
movies in the gym that you had bad Batman?
No, that was the joke. Okay, so we were in the gym and our Pack Athletes Are Trash shirts was because of a battle on Instagram. And I posted on Hillers because he loves Batman quotes. And I said, you either live long enough to be a hero, or you see yourself become the villain. And like, that's a line that Harvey Dent says in, what's it called? The Batman with Christian Bale and Heath Ledger.
Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, there you go. And I was like, that's you. Like you became the villain. And then that's where the whole spiraled and this Instagram trolls and all these people. So yeah, that's what Cody was saying about he's got it about my Batman quotes. And today, what did I say today? My Batman quote?
I don't remember. I was blacked out. I don't remember.
We're in the middle of a IWT workout. Heather and I did it together. And I said some Batman quote and like, I was like, I'm a man of my word. You know, when Heath Ledger, he's like, and I'm a man of my word. It's really good. So I was like, I said that. And Cody was just like, dude, stop. You suck at Batman quotes, remember? Yeah.
Harley, I like your introduction. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just on par with the topic of conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
I love it.
I didn't know that's where we were starting today. But
I just said another Batman quote, and then I apparently say a lot of Batman quotes. But anyways, it was a highbrow joke. Didn't land with the Hiller population. Yeah, it didn't.
Is my audio pretty good?
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
Oh, that's so good.
Tyler sounds good too.
Dude, Tyler, is it a microphone and you're not on a recliner? That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, playing
I know. Step up.
We changed it.
So much life in the room. It's nice.
Sick.
All right. Well, this is going to be the off-season show and the games prep. But before we do that, we got to give a shout out to all nine. Pack Athletes Are Trash, though. But all 9 of our Masters athletes going to the CrossFit Games. Oh, yes. Let's go. 9. All right. We have Nancy Vancore. You got, I forgot them all. Haley Quiller, Jen Dieter, John LeConte. Who else?
John has the deck.
EC, Shanna. Who am I missing? I can't even get. We should count. We should go through the
John
list.
has the back.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
6, that's
we
7.
have 10.
New guy.
Oh
New guy.
Brian.
Brian Wolf.
And then
Wolfie.
you got Sarah Timpson.
Yep.
And our newest, I just got a text like 90 minutes ago that Sherry Yacalis got a backfill of the 60 plus. So she's in
60,
too.
64. They're in. So many people.
60, 64.
So is that 11 then?
I think that's 10.
10.
Oh, I'm saying with the backfill since that's the new info.
No, we had 8, and then that's why I can't remember everybody who's. Let's go through them again. Let me pull up the list so we can just read through and
Pull up
ramble
the formal list. Plug
Yeah,
it in the chat.
and just run
Plug
through.
it in the comments.
Try to do it from memory. So it happens though, because when I only have 6 of the 10, it's hard to remember the other ones, and they all get jumbled together. All right. Qualifying to the Masters CrossFit Games: Shanna Bunce, Cece Fugier, Nancy Vancourt, Jen Dieter, Haley Quiller, Sarah Timpson, John LeConte, Brian Wolfe, and Sherry. How do you say Sherry's last name? That was really good.
I think it's Yacalis.
Yacalis.
Yeah.
And then our new guy, John.
And John. So that's 10.
10.
The fingers don't lie.
10 Masters athletes, but we're trash. So whatever. I quit.
Pretty sick. I know John LeConte was saying today at training, because we had 18 in semifinals. And then when we found out Sherry got in, he
He's
said
like 50%.
50%. Now we're above 50%. No, actually, no, because he wasn't in with this. So yes, we're still at 50%. That's good.
It's cool. We're gonna have a lot of work to do, but off-season training for those who did not make it. For those who did make it, we're working on some cool posts for Instagram. We want to make them nice. It's important. John was like, "Don't post me. I don't want to be posted about." I was like, "Dude, it matters to me." He's like, "It's okay." So modest. He comes in the gym, and like every day, I'm like, CrossFit Games athlete, John. It's so fun. He hates it. I'm like, dude, you're never gonna not be a CrossFit Games athlete from now on.
Yeah.
And you go here forever, and you just paid off your house. So like for the rest of my life, as long as I don't leave here, I get to see John and just like tell him he's a CrossFit Games athlete.
He
It's gonna
made
be
the
so
CrossFit
fun.
Games and paid off his house in the same week. I mean, that's
And bought a new
sweet.
car.
Oh, and bought a new car.
That's
Wow.
a good week.
Yeah.
That's
Golly.
good.
Quite a baller.
Yeah. He's the man.
Well, the really cool thing is we finally won an arbitration on a score review. So
Yeah.
John got some no reps on his ring muscle ups. They were saying that his shoulders were not over the ring in a support position. The error we made, and we took ownership of this, was that our walls are gray, and then he was wearing like a gray shirt that kind of matched. So it was hard to see that his shoulders, because they're kind of blended in, but you could see that his shoulder tip like cuts off the strap. And we got him back. He only got no rep on 1 rep. And out of the 24 ring muscle ups that I looked at, I was like, yeah, there's a no rep in there. So then they gave us that 1 no rep, and he's going to CrossFit Games. Pretty neat. But we got that back. And like never happens.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I've only heard of it a couple times. Like actually working out in their favor.
Well, the other thing is he was the only penalty that we got for everybody that came on site.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah. It's really sick.
Yeah.
And then we have more shout outs. We got Kathy on site. So I got the cool judges shirts now. She is going to judge at the Masters CrossFit Games. She's a member here.
Sick.
She was we're like, hey, you get to be the head judge. You're our Adrian Bosman for semifinals. And she wrangled everybody together. She's also in contacts with the AFJ, and she's getting the hours that you need to become an AFJ judge. And she's like really hyped up, and I'm happy to support her. Just want to give her a shout out because she's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Crush
That's
it.
awesome.
And then if we have anybody who wants to come, that's in our gym who watches this and wants to come, Kathy's going to be in charge, and we're going to just start rolling you guys in. So if you like judging and you want to like do this as a fun little project and maybe judge at the CrossFit Games or the Masters Games or local competitions like Adirondack Fitness Challenge that we'll be at, she's going to be judging there, and Renata is also going to be judging there. So really cool. I'm happy that our community is getting involved and invested that way, and we want more people to do that. Also makes our job super easy, and then a cool environment that is, I would say, safe for athletes to not get any penalties and be very copacetic with the high standard that CrossFit should uphold.
Yeah.
So it's good. Harley, you like that? Harley got no penalties.
Good.
Getting the semifinals.
Yeah.
Sick.
Wait, you're saying for our
Who's the
team or for Nancy?
For the team. Well, Nancy got no penalties, right?
No, we got a 1 ring muscle up penalty.
Oh no.
1.
You're trash.
JP uprised a buzzer
Oh,
shot.
that's
And they
right.
said he didn't pass through a dip.
No, it was the time, right? Wasn't the time?
They said he didn't pass through a dip.
I see.
That was the specific one. So that was the only penalty we got as a team. And then when I judged and coached Nancy on site, she did not get a penalty as well. And I'm pretty sure John Hazodak didn't get a penalty, given I didn't judge him, but I was in the room, so I feel special.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, that's a hard job to do. I think what John and I were also talking today about just like the semifinals and the judging and like some of the things like people coming out, and I want to say whining about the judging. I don't care. Like
I was whining.
Yeah, you were whining.
I'm still fucking whining.
But
I actually submitted my review, my survey for West Coast Classic, and the only thing I criticized was that.
You can whine. That's fine. I mean,
And I said it may not be within your control, but I hope that the message gets passed on upstream.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because like there are a lot of calls that were good, and there are a lot of calls
for sure. There was plenty that were more than fair.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I would say from like even watching the East semifinals and some of the criticisms from those, and then being at the West semifinal, like they were, I would say it was equally fair across the board. Now, was there a judge who shall not be named, Lord Voldemort, who like people are out to kill right now? Yeah, that guy's in trouble.
Yeah.
But they were.
I don't know who you're referring to, but that's okay.
He was in the East, and like,
oh, gotcha.
People were like ripping him, and apparently he like would go in the back and say like, "Oh, I know rep these people and those people."
That's not a good time.
It's not good.
There was consistent complaints about lane 9 and lane 10 within our heats as teams. And so those two judges, like, and I even spoke with a friend who, is within the staff sort of realm of volunteers and such. And he was like, yeah, that guy's consistently throwing out, inconsistent calls. And also you can't really justify the rationale behind his calls. So that guy may be sort of pointed at as well, but I understand they're all volunteers and they're all just passionate and love CrossFit and happy to be there. But I felt like there was just this vendetta, sort of this like mission to like prove a point on the overhead squat or the squat snatch, for the individuals. Cause there was a lot of good examples of like individuals as well. What?
I wouldn't say a vendetta, but yeah.
No, but like a top down message. It was like, hey, we have to like, these are the common faults here at the bottom and the top.
Yep.
And if you're not like paying attention to both, you're not doing your job. And it's
to like your point, like when you take the judges course online for the open, they give you that range, right? Where they're like, where it's like overly extreme and like not harsh enough for movement standard. And like, they're saying like, you want to be towards like overly extreme, but not because you don't want to push towards the end. And what you're saying is, and I agree with you after watching the judging and stuff, is that sometimes it was like with your thing, they wanted you to go to hyperextension of the hip, which is not, anatomical neutral and full extension. And
and it not even to make it about me, like it was just,
we could just
there were calls all over the place, right? Like that, even in the individual side. And so like I referenced that, like I got to be a fan, on Sunday, and that was kind of the optimistic silver lining to only competing 2 days is I got to turn it off and go just enjoy the show on Sunday. And like there were calls on squat snatches that were just like, wait, what was that? Like, why would they even say that? And then I jokingly pointed out to you, I was like, well, what is a squat snatch? You're receiving it in an overhead squat and you have to stand all the way up. Why aren't they yelling at them to extend their hips at the top?
Yeah.
But like, so there was just sort of the inconsistencies. There wasn't continuity across shapes, that were consistent across two different movements, but they're essentially the same movement, right?
Yeah. I mean, both sides. Like I talked to Todd Whitman, who at the time, who is the liaison at the West Semi events. He's typically the liaison even at the games for certain groups of like age groups or like individuals or teams or whatever. And, he agreed. He agreed with that there were some no reps from you. There were not some no reps from you. And they talked about it across the board. So it's good. It's moving in a positive direction. I chalk it up to the thing of like, you watch the NFL, NBA, NHL, like there are a ton of missed calls all the time. And there are a ton of wrong calls. Like we pulled it up on Google and there was like 1,200 incorrect calls in the NFL last season. And it's like, And John did the math on how many games and like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, like he's like, oh, that's like only like 10%. I'm like, well, yeah. So like, and then we look at some of these incorrect calls and everyone, this is why I think people are whining, is because like if we looked at the number of athletes that competed in semifinals and the number of athletes who had an incorrect call, I think the percent would be really low. So we're looking at people are complaining of the minority, but the majority of people had very good calls, very good judging, and a very good event, and it was very fair. So
yeah, I think it seems like there's a lot more cost and risk behind these missed calls to people's within our perspective, because we have one opportunity to sort of get through the cut line, right? Like, and or this is our maybe for someone like me, they're like, this is the end all be all for the year, and it's like if you're gonna have a handful of bad calls and have that leave a sour taste in your mouth, it's like, well, my big event for the year just got tainted. And so like that, selfishly, like that could be the perspective, but like regardless,
yeah, but
there are good and bad calls all over the place, to your point.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, even in sport though, it's like you have a game every single week. So it's like, or multiple games a week if you're in the MLB, right? So it's like you have one bad game with a bunch of bad calls, and it's like, okay, that's like a, baseball, it's like that's a 120th of your season or whatever, where it's like, to Carly's point, it's like you train all year for this one weekend event, and it is way more expensive to the athlete, which is just, unfortunate. But I think people are human as well, which
I'm going to continue to play devil's advocate though, because how many of you guys saw Rogue's post?
What about devil's advocate of
the Rogue Invitational, of how it's not your one opportunity? I think that's also a misconception and like a wrong thought process, because Rogue now is taking into account the Open, quarterfinals, games, Rogue Online Qualifier, Rogue, to give you points, and they're creating a point system to give you opportunity to get invited to the Rogue event. If we played CrossFit the way we play like golf, because golf has a very similar system, not exact, but similar, that you're getting points throughout the year for events, whether they're big, small, or whatever. If CrossFit turns around and is like, oh, that's a really cool idea, that's working for Rogue, let's now all these other events, Wodapalooza SoCal, Wodapalooza this, TFX that, things in Europe, and you're getting points. Now every event matters. You get points for the Open, you get points for quarters, you get points for this, you get points for that. Do I think people should be competing that much in a off season? No, but then it would make it a thing where like it matters. Like all the parts matter. And that might be a mind shift for a lot of people. It's like the Open does matter. The quarters do matter, even though it is like, your pinnacle, like semifinals is a big deal to you the way it is right now, the way it's structured right now. But could we shift that?
Yeah, of course. And I think that year to year, with how often and frequently there are changes within the sport, and CrossFit is making adjustments to how we approach the season each and every year, I think that you have to be flexible. And if they were to do that and they were to add more value to the stages earlier on, or even off-season events, like you may have to consider going to another event if you are concerned about, the people that are like, oh, the Open's not necessarily good for me because it's very low skill. There's a lot of people on the leaderboard. It's very costly to have a poor performance there. I'd rather go to an off-season event, gain some extra points in a more of like out of the box style format where you get to run and you get to do some, unique implements at an in-person event, given that's all hypothetical. And
but let's play.
My point is you have to be flexible, because CrossFit is ever changing, it seems like.
Yeah.
Constantly varied,
dude. Year after year, no structure.
Constantly varied. So I would argue there is a lot of structure. You just got to find it.
Speaking of structure, I was kidding.
Off season. So as it is right now, the A season is this. Like if you're talking about just trying to get to semifinals, or trying to get to the games, or just trying to get through Open to quarters, how is the off season structured? Like, let's go through the season. Tyler, go through the season, Tyler. Okay. Because you haven't said much. I want you to tell us the season. So right now is June. Most people, it's done. Semifinals is done, unless you're going to the CrossFit Games, but we won't include those people. So June, walk us through all the way to the Open. What do we got going on?
You're probably going to take, depending on the person, at least take a week off just to rest. And then from there, we're going to build a lot. Well, some people like.
I told Paige, you're going to take a month off, Paige. She's training this week.
Yeah, right.
I lied. I wanted her to. I thought it'd be good. I thought it would be good. I know she asked for training. I thought it'd be good mentally, emotionally, and like it is good, but people want to train. I don't agree with it. I think
Jace asked for a month off. I told him no.
Jace
asked for a full month off, and I was like, "Nah, man." I was like, "Take 2 full weeks, and then we'll go back to a limited schedule."
Yeah, CJ was surprised I only got a week. Crying emoji. I mean, the problem is like, well, CJ, you can have another week if you want. We can start up later. That's fine. People do ask for training. I think that's so. Yeah, okay, a week off. I don't want to derail you, but I think after you've gone to the biggest pinnacle, whether that's let's back that up a little bit. If you go to semifinals, I think, and then you're done, I think you should take a month off because that's hard. You're so fit. You've done so much. You've sacrificed so much that you just need to take some time and just chill. Like do some other things.
And it depends on what you mean by off. Like some people, like they go for a mile run after a week.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about people who are like, I want to come in and snatch clean and jerk. It's like, no, bro, no.
Right.
Being kettlebell clean and jerks for funsies? Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
If I had my way, my best world, if we take a month off and like you do some yoga, you do hot yoga, you do some meditating. Look at Harley's like, I can't do it.
I just did my first German volume training session today. I can't lift my arms.
God.
You can't feel your arms.
We won't get derailed. All right, so you take a week off. Go ahead, Todd. Week to a month. We'll go with that.
A week to a month. And then you've had a conversation with your coach.
Oh yeah, that's good.
So,
like
do what?
So that's good.
You've talked to your coach about like what do you need to work on, and you figured that out. And then most likely for 6-ish months, you're accumulating. You're in a massive accumulation cycle, and then around December, January, depending on who you are, you start going through more of an intensification because the Open's coming up and you want to start more of like practicing your sport and getting into that intensity. And then, hi, CJ. And then the Open starts and you go from there and your season's back.
All right. Yeah. Generally, that's what it looks like. Like, especially if you're trying to maximize, let's say the Open quarters, potentially semifinals, whatever you're trying to do. Anybody got a structure that you would follow if, let's say you're like, you like to play CrossFit, you want to compete, like what would those times of accumulation and intensification look like? How would you structure that? Like, give me some weeks, months for somebody, let's say who's, they're still going to do the Open, but they also maybe want to do an off-season competition, or they're like Harley and they want to collect points for the new fictitious point collecting season that we're going to talk about later. Don't put thumbs down like that. Anybody?
Yeah, the way I would look at it is it just depends on when in the calendar year the off-season event is. Ideally, we're shooting for something that's far enough out that we can take time off, reset, rebuild some structural strength, stability, etc. in the early parts of the off-season, and then do some weakness work and not do specific, sport-specific CrossFit style work for a period of time. So my goal sort of timeline would be somewhere around October, early November for an off-season event, just so we have a few months to truly reset, rebuild a little bit. That in mind, we aren't necessarily looking at that event as like the peak of the year, right? We want to ideally probably have a few weeks of sport-specific work leading into the event, so you don't feel like you're getting, crushed whenever that event or qualifier comes around. But ideally, you are still in that sort of limiter bridge area. So you're working on your limitations, you're working on your weakness work, you're working on, maybe building a bigger base of either strength or aerobic ability. And that is your priority. The off-season event is just an opportunity to play the game, gain experience, and check in, sort of see how that weakness work is going. After that, ideally you take another week off or so, or just at least a sort of re-taper back into training, so you're not hitting that huge dose of intensity and then beating yourself up and diving right back into progression. So from there, once you are back into the flow of things, we're talking that timeline, the events around October and November, then ideally you have sort of accumulation phase up into December, based on maybe your experience level that would dictate how soon or how late you push off the getting back into that open prep cycle. If you are going for a peak for the quarterfinal level, then maybe you'll have to get that open prep cycle started a little earlier. And then if you're going to try to peak later in the season, like you are trying and planning to go to semifinals, you're training for that level of competition, you would probably start that open specific work or competition specific work later on in that season, maybe even into January, because there's just so much time still in the season. And that's just based off of the timeline of this past year. This past year, it even got pushed back a little farther, right? So we had even more time. Who knows what next year will bring? Obviously, we joked about how they change stuff every year, but that's actually a consideration. So
they're going to change again.
Yeah, for sure they will.
No, I know.
Cool. All right. Anyways, yeah. So we're looking at off-season event sometime around October. You will sort of ramp up for that. You'll pull back again, rebuild again up until probably mid-December, early December for the early people, late December, January for the people going for semifinals, and then it gets more competition and season specific from there.
Sick.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
What are some like avatars of people that it's really tough? Because like I would even say GPP people in general, like where at what point do you sit back and go, you need accumulation? Right? Because like we have however 13,000 plus or minus affiliates and like CrossFit style gyms in the world. And like how many of those people that go to a general gym should be doing accumulation?
The majority,
like working on skills and isolation. Like, does that give people more fitness? Like, because I'm going to lead this into something else, but like if you take somebody and let's say they're doing Metcons, ton of Metcons in class, like a normal CrossFit class, they're coming in and warming up, they're doing either some strength or some skill or not at all, and then just doing a Metcon, or they're classic CrossFit where you're like long, short, heavy, couplets, triplets, trippers, heavy day, and they're working all the energy systems. Like how long, like at what point do you stop somebody who is like doing workouts all the time, and let's say they're doing one total bar at a time in a class? Like how long as a coach do you guys, like, where's your tolerance? Because for me, my tolerance is fucking low. Like I'm just like, I can't stand it. Like and that's the problem I want to solve within CrossFit affiliates, but it's also the same problem I'm trying to solve with elite athletes. Because the bridge here is with this, and the analogy is like I just had a call with an athlete yesterday about he gets through 4 rounds of 20 toe bar unbroken, and on that 5th round he breaks apart, and that's why he's not an individual male athlete going to semifinals. And it's like, well, that's the same problem as a GPP person who gets into a workout and does one total bar at a time. It is literally the same problem. So if those are the same problems, like at what point do you start really just even individual people that we coach? You know, I know we all talk about the isolation stuff and accumulation right away. How do we, because they're going to listen to this, and I hope people watch this and listen to this, about how do we like really stress that and make it a value to people? Because as of right now, the only value is like, I want to stop doing them in singles, or I want to make it to semifinals. That's not super motivating. Like what else is tangible, and why is that valuable to people? I don't want to answer my own question. I can. I don't want to though.
Can you I don't really understand like the question.
So like when and why do you pull people into isolation? And what is the value beyond them doing one total bar and turning that into total bar, 10 total bar? Convert, like similarly, someone who can do 4 rounds of 20 unbroken needs to do that 5th round of 20 unbroken. What are those values beyond them doing more total bar?
Doesn't it also come down to what the person wants out of their fitness? Because yes, even though it's the same problem, the person that's just doing GPP and the person that wants to make the semifinals are fitnessing for different reasons. So wouldn't it come down to like the person that's GPP of like, hey, you're going to have to not Metcon as much as you're doing in order to actually fix something that's wrong. But that's probably a big reason why they actually come to the gym, because they love doing Metcons with other people. Right. So having to step outside of that would be a big ask of them.
Sure. But think about this. There are people who go into a global gym who are very fit, and do bicep curls 2 times a week and no Metcons.
Fair,
so
yeah.
Wouldn't they get the same value fitness wise? Because like they want fitness. I get that. Taking them from 1 total bar to 10, what value, like what fitness does that give them? Because like if you do 1 bicep curl and then you could do 10 bicep curls as a bodybuilder, what do you get out of that? Like, Tristan's gonna speak.
I mean, I think what you're getting at, because there's a lot of different ways to read into this, is you're getting them increased work capacity, right? You're getting them an increase in work capacity. So for the GPP person, if they want that, then you're expanding, their capacity through midline flexion, and that's going to translate to some other things in class, and they might think it's cooler because they're seeing progress and whatever, which that's awesome. And then for the competitive athlete, the way I think about that a lot of times is I'm trying to remove a rate limiting step in you going faster in a workout. So if we take it, even if that avatar you gave, that set of 20 in their 5th round goes, from 5s to 10, 6, 4, we're faster, we're better, right? So I think that's what you're getting at least that's how I kind of interpreted it. But at a basic level, I feel like you're just, for both client avatars, you're increasing their work capacity. Even the bicep curl person, if they go from 1 to 10 with, a 50-pound preacher curl, they have increased work capacity in their biceps, which is more than likely going to lead to increased hypertrophy, which is probably what they're going for if they're doing preacher curls, right?
Yeah. That was good. That was a leading question to help people understand who watch and listen to this, the fact that like, that's what you're trying to do, right? So there is value in isolating things because as you go into the off season, that's the first place you need to start. If you want to get better, you want to increase your work capacity, you need to start isolating your limitations. And that's where like even Tyler said for like 6 months, you might spend time 6 months isolating your limitation. And people will feel often that I'm not getting fitter. I'm not getting better at Metcons. It's like, yeah, but you already have the sticking point that you're never going to get over if we don't isolate and increase that singular skill and work capacity. Like today, Heather, what'd you do before we did that terrible IWT? What did you do?
I did rope climb work. So I was working more on my rope climb technique and just building out capacity. Don't you want me to say what I specifically did?
No, that's okay. And why did you do that rope climb work? What happened in quarterfinals?
I didn't get through the rope climbs. I exploded because I want to use my arms way more than I want to use my legs. So what I've been doing now is doing rope climb work 1 to 2 times a week, just working on technique.
Yeah. And the volume of those rope climbs.
Yeah.
So it's going to allow her to not get bottlenecked in that rope climb ever again.
Yeah.
And she'll be faster and better, which then increases demand on the muscle, glycogen consumption, building her work capacity. Her ventilation rate is going to go up when she starts doing more rope climbs faster. Like everything else is going to increase, which then when she puts it in a mixed modal setting will allow her to express more fitness and she will be more fit over time.
And I have another layer to this.
Good.
The less sexy side of it is the movement economy that you'll develop by improving technical proficiency and or skill endurance within whatever the movement pattern and or area of fitness it is.
I like that skill endurance.
Except for the bicep curl, because you're probably not going to gain movement economy there, but
yeah,
again, hypertrophy, and that's really all that matters.
True.
Well, and even the benefit,
and
like Todd was doing the rope climbs with me, but of course he's doing them legless, and I beat you, and he's going super fast.
I gave her. I was like, I'll give you a head start.
I know, but
she's halfway up the rope. I got up and down before she got.
Yeah, whatever. But my point is that like what I was working on was not to race Todd and speed. What I needed to focus on was like changing my footwork, leaning over the top of the rope, stepping down full body weight, right? And being very technical in what I'm doing. Because I'm like, if I'm just trying to beat Todd up the rope, then I'm just defaulting back to what my shitty movement pattern is.
Yeah, I was just giving you shit.
I know you were. But I'm just saying that like to be able to beat Todd in 3 months or 6 months, I need to fix this now. And I need to work on that problem and worry less about beating Todd right now than later down the road. because that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. And I think that's like what you're getting at too with like GPP members, is we run into this problem of like them wanting to do singles or doubles on their toes to bar because they just want to like do the work, and they're like missing.
They want that RX, dude.
Right, exactly. And they're missing the point that they're never going to increase that work capacity. They're never going to get what they want.
Yeah, but they get to check that box, dude.
I know.
That's kind of what Tyler was.
Don't even get me started. Yes,
they need that dopamine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I am worthy.
Right.
Yeah, no. So this is really important though. Like for people listening, going into off season, like that's it. That's the base level of like going into the off season. It takes a lot of humility to be like, I'm going to change. Like Harley's, that was an amazing point. I'm going to change my movement economy. I'm going to change the way I do something. I think that's another piece for off season, stepping into that. Like not only are you going to isolate and these limitations and really work on them, it's the minutia and the detail. And like, you know, we'd make this joke here in the gym, like, cause Marissa told Sophia, like when she was doing burpee box jump overs in semifinals, she was like standing there being like, that's not it. That's not it. So now we said, that's not it. Like when someone's doing something that's not good technique or they're going too slow, we're just like, that's not it. And so learning how to make sure that you're doing it right, you know, and I think the pushback too in off season is there's a lot of athletes who will say, well, I've always done it this way. And that's where you made the biggest mistake in your career. Like you are now putting a barrier up and not having opportunity and saying, you know, I've always done it this way. And this didn't get me what I wanted. So I need to try something new and change my movement economy and efficiency. So then I have skill endurance, like Harley said, you know, because speaking about the rope climb thing, I was doing kip swing rope climbs on the last couple sets. And I was like, why does anyone do this? I just wanted to practice it. And it's so inefficient. Like I was like, no wonder people like slide down to their death. Like my grip started to fatigue. You got to kip every time. And I'm taking like a big reach too.
It looked pretty terrible for someone who's good at rope climbs. I was like, well,
yeah, it's not good though, dude.
And maybe she keep practicing.
But what I was saying, I'm like, sometimes people do them because that's all they got. Right?
That's all they have.
They have no more pull. So they got to use their hip and their grip.
So right. Here's a, you know, devil's advocate. I love in a Legos rope climb to be, you know, with my long monkey arms, 3/4 way up the rope, do a big kip and basically hit the beam from way down low because I can just like not take an extra pull or two. So if you have the skill to be able to kip, it can be really, really efficient and really add to your speed and save energy. Kristen,
I mean, it's definitely worth having that in your toolbox, you know, like
that's sort of like my favorite thing is just having a variety of variations. There you go, redundancies. A variety of tools just so you can change what you're doing, change how you're doing it, even within a singular session.
Yeah, well, we talk about that a lot, even in like the class with like toes to bar. I know I specifically talk about it a lot because a lot of people like want to hop up there and they're just like, and like they're doing these crazy toes to bar. Their heart rate's super exploded, and I'm like, well, where do you go when you're dead? And they're just like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, okay, like you got to hop up and like slow the movement down, breathe through it, like have really good shapes, long arch and hollow positions so that, especially if I'm doing bigger sets of them. And then when I start dying, then I'm like, okay, then I'm like defaulting to this different, like kipping, faster movement. But I think people just are like, I'm just going to do what I've always done and not see value in having different ways of doing a movement. Why that's important. Also, CJ says my favorite training pieces are the boring ones, and that's also why you're an elite athlete. So good job.
Oh, she also says I have festivities this weekend, and anyone getting
it's her bachelorette weekend.
Yeah, bachelor.
Remember, Marissa's coming out. Yep. Your daughter's coming out. Your mother-in-law's coming out. Everyone's coming.
Yeah, everyone's coming out except for me. I'll be here. Love it. My favorite training pieces are the boring ones. I mean, that rope climb workout today that you were doing that I jumped in on with you was not boring, but it was the boring stuff, you know.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean,
I know, but people would do that workout because tell them what it was, and people would look at that and be like, "That's boring."
Oh, well, I did 1.1, so 1 rope climb, rest 30 seconds, 1 rope climb, rest 90 seconds, 7 sets.
Yeah,
that's it.
Boring.
Sexy.
So sexy. It was fun though because I just talked shit the whole time.
But my arms weren't exploded, so that was a positive.
Go ahead, Tristan.
To me, like that piece, like 1.1, 7 sets, rest 30 seconds, and like people you got to eat your veggies, man. Like you can't be Rich Froning on the rope if you can't move up the rope efficiently. So it's like, I get that athletes don't want to do the boring stuff, but it's always an interesting psychology thing with me, because you'll write something like that, which is very unsexy, and people don't like it, and then you write 5x5 back squat for max load, and people are like, fuck yeah, and it's like 5x5 is really not that cool. Like, I could write way cooler squat sessions, but people love it. So I think it's a psychology thing and getting people to buy into doing the work that's needed.
What's really cool is doing something you suck at and then not sucking at it in 6 months. That's 100%. What's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I did want to pull this up because I like Harley's, but I don't know how many of you guys saw this. This is going to go in like our training. I've screen recorded it, but it's Travis Mayer climbing the rope. And look at that reach. Just like Harley's talking about. Oh, man, such a wonderful reach. Alexis Raptis here also climbing up. Look at how, dude. She's just going for it. Look at her. It's in slow-mo, so it takes a long time. She doesn't actually climb that slow. But this is what Harley was talking about with the kip swing. She's going to go here, and then she's going to kip swing. Oh, no, she doesn't. She's a baller. But either way, look at that reach. Oh, my. And that slide
down. They don't have to kip swing because it's like a 12-foot tall beam.
Bro.
It's like a 9-foot rope climb.
Bro, listen. Yeah. Did you not see that? That was.
Well, what were we watching the other day that said, like, they were talking about some workout and they're like 800 meters ish or something.
Hey,
what was
those
that?
are two of the best in the world. No kip swing, Harley. Just saying, dog. You know, this is how I always do it.
No, I understand. Like, I'm saying, like, if you're at your ends, or you're just trying to limit the pull, like the pulling fatigue that you'll accrue. The issue is that people don't like to do that because you have to straighten your arms again. You have to give up that advantageous 90-degree, angle at the elbow. Yes. To lengthen and really utilize the kip. Yeah, but if you got it, you can. If you got it and you got monkey arms like me, you can basically do that at like the 12-foot mark and still hit the beam.
Yeah, and they also, did you notice across all semifinals? So it was fair. The black tape around, it was down far enough, and they had to hit the beam. So like everybody had to go about a foot, where you couldn't, like, like people get up there and they're like, and they catch like this. It's like you're not doing that. Like if you train that, that's another thing, talking about like off-season stuff, training things. Like if you're going to get to semifinals or the games, you need to train things like you see at the games, the setup of the games. So if you're like here and you're touching the beam with like your fingertips or whatever, it's like, well, that's not, you're not going to make it. You're going to get no rep. You can't make, and you're going to wonder why.
I don't know if I speak for everybody here when I say this, but as a coach, there is nothing more infuriating than if somebody has a movement that is hard or difficult for them with the given standard that CrossFit puts out, and they don't just train to that standard every time they do the movement.
Yeah.
It makes me want to stand in traffic. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your own time?
Yeah, totally.
Like,
but yeah. Or setups like the rope thing. Yeah. It's crazy. You're like shooting yourself in the foot. It's like, yeah, you're getting better, you're getting fitter, but like once you get out there on the floor, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And like, they don't want to listen. It's like, how many events I've been to, how many people I've coached that I've watched them like struggle with something. And I'm like, if we only practice, I'm like trying to cut your curve. Like, okay, I understand some people want to make their own mistakes and learn from their mistakes. It's like, listen, I've done those mistakes. We could cut that learning curve real fast if you just want to listen. And that's where like off season.
I think it's psychological though too, because it's like they're training and they're like, okay, well, I have to go fast. I have to do this. Like I have to get these times, and the only way I'm going to do that is if I do it the way that I know or whatever. And so but they're missing the whole point of like, okay, well, you need to train it to the standard anyways, because that's what's going to be asked of you. But I think it just becomes really psychological for the athlete because they just are too afraid to slow down or like correct it or make a small tweak or whatever that could potentially slow them down, but not realizing that they go to the big show and then they're just going to get no repped and slowed anyway. So,
and I think a lot of that comes from they think they're going to get less fit.
Yeah.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
So Tristan, you said it bothers you when people don't train to whatever the given standard is. So for example, let's say the 10-inch from the wall, 30-inch long tape line for handstand push-ups. If they don't ever put that line down and they're just like going 40 inches wide with their hands 12 inches from the wall, then they're just, setting themselves up for failure, not having position within the specific strength to the movement. So that's a very specific example, which I completely agree with. If you're not putting a tape down, you're screwing yourself. As someone who has always trained a bar facing
also real quick, also just training the variations, right? Training the box, training the line, like taking all of the variations from all of the time that they've done.
Are you going to measure your forearm?
No, don't do that one. That's a bad one. They omitted that is a bad one. All the good ones that they've used, quote unquote, the box, that one's a good standard. They're probably going to use that again. The line, that's a good standard. They're probably going to use that. So train those two for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. Like, look at some of the standards. But yeah, go ahead with the bar facing burpee.
Okay. So like as someone who's like always trains bar facing burpees, truly facing the bar, I don't really let myself get away with the diagonal shit. Box facing burpees or burpee box movers, like I always face the box, that type of thing. Then this year quarterfinals comes out for the individuals. I didn't do this workout, but we all know it, right? Those 50 burpee box movers, and they put the name lateral. Did you have to do it lateral? It's like, no, you could have faced it, but people got so caught up on it and they didn't know how to step down laterally efficiently. So yes, theoretically it's faster to go laterally, but it was slower and more or less energy efficient for most people because they didn't have, that movement pattern in their back pocket.
They're not an athlete. Just say it.
They're just not an athlete. I don't know. I may have just screwed that up completely myself too. If I was to do that workout, I haven't done it yet. I don't know if I'm going to be mean to myself and make myself do it at some point, but probably not anytime soon anyways.
Not fun.
It's not fun.
I enjoyed it.
10 out of 10. Don't recommend.
10 out of 10 recommend. I enjoyed it.
All right. So we have all right.
Okay.
So anyways, like Taylor Self and JR Howell shared a point that Adrian has said. So now I'm like 3 layers deep of he said, she said.
Let's go.
But Adrian has said at some point that he appreciates changing the standards. That's all fake. It's all fake. But he enjoys changing the way that people think it's going to be tested. So they think that they're going to have to do it that specific way. And then he makes a minor tweak that changes what seems like everything to a given athlete, right? They're like, well, shit, you threw my whole game plan out the window because I have to go laterally now. Or I think I have to go laterally, even though you didn't. And so to Todd's point, I think you should be a student of the game and try to figure out what the historical standards were. Use your best judgment to filter out the good and the bad, right? Like don't measure your forearm for a handstand push-up, but also don't be afraid to like vary a little so that you have, other options in your mind.
Yeah. So I would agree with that. I don't think there's, looking at the off season or next season's training, I'll definitely include like lateral burpee box jump overs and start introducing that for people and things like that. Because I had athletes who were very comfortable with those, and I had athletes, Jacob did that whole workout with facing because he was much more efficient, and it was easier for him to not get frazzled and overextend, right? And it worked out fine. But that's something we'll put in. I think for me, the movements I would classify that it drives me nuts when athletes don't practice the standard are the ones like the handstand push-ups, the legless, making sure you're getting 15 feet, those little things, the ones that really, really catch people if you're not used to the standards. Maybe I'm just partial to the handstand push-ups because I'm built like an orangutan, but whatever.
I mean, the
you and me, bud. You and me.
The point of it is like in the off season, it's like, you're going to do this accumulation. There's opportunity for some variation in the things you're doing. Harley's saying, become a student of the game, listen to your coach. Like, especially, I have a ton of experience. Harley's been to multiple competitions now, coaching a lot of people at competitions. Heather coached athletes at Legends, one of the biggest masters competitions. Tristan's coached a ton of people. Like, we've seen it all. There's no reason to argue with us. Just like, I hate sometimes where it has to be like a dictatorship, but ultimately some opportunities for that, because it's like, we've seen this done. Don't waste your time. Like, that's our job, is to help you not waste your time. And we're telling you like, hey, today try it this way, or do it this way, or think about it this way, or watch this person do this, or watch this video. So then that way you can build into that training. So then when it comes up, because it will come up, and you will be faced with it, and you'll have the agility to go right through that with no problem. And the best athletes do that, and they don't get caught up. They don't like, oh, this is unfair, I can't believe they're gonna do it. They just like right through, they don't yell at their judge, I'm fucking trying, things like that.
Who did that?
Who did that?
Who did that?
Tristan, you yell at a judge?
No, you made changes, Harley. It was fun. It was funny though. But yeah, I mean, that's the off season time now for the next 6 months is like, that's it. Like those are the key things, like limitations, really looking at how you move, looking at opportunities to change movements, learn new movement patterns that might have given you a hang up, like lateral burpee box jump over. Like my athletes are going to do some of those. Sometimes we're still going to focus on doing, bar facing burpees because it's very prominent, things like that. And just building those efficiencies and not worrying so much about capacity. With the change in the sport, because there is a change in the sport, what would you guys say is the number one thing someone wants to focus on for their off season? If they're like a semifinal athlete, then they might have not done so well. What do you think? I mean, everybody's a little different, but like, what do you mean
by the change in the season?
The sport, change in the sport. Well, the season.
He think he's alluding to the increased bias towards work capacity over like skill limitations and bottlenecks.
And sustained aerobic power.
Maximum sustainable pacing, those types of things. Yeah, I mean, the pack just put out a post about maximum sustainable pacing.
Yes,
just
you did, Harley.
Throwing it out there. Yeah, I didn't get credit. The pack did that. Yeah, I think that
our media girl.
Really, it's just what?
I gotta talk to our media girl. She needs to be tagging you on there. I'll edit it.
All right. Anyways, I think what we just need to learn is how to keep moving regardless of, or as long as you have the components, right? As long as you don't have a major skill or load limitation within a given test, you have to figure out how to keep moving as efficiently and consistently as possible. So whether that be in this early part of the off season, starting with a fixed 10-second rest between movements or sets in your rest periods transitions, and then trying to cut that down to 9, cut that down to 8, cut that down to 7. You're probably not going to get much faster than 7. I think like really the best in the sport can, in some circumstances, get away with like 5s, but really for a sustainable 15 to 20 minute time domain workout with lots of transitions, if you're striving for 7-second rest periods and transitions, you're probably knocking it out of the park. That said, you have to keep that within the scope of where your fitness is at and where you're starting from. And so consistent movement, figuring out what sets are appropriate for you to allow you to repeat those consistent transitions and rest periods is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, and then learning what people are doing in your group.
Yeah, and then striving for what the pace is for your peers.
I mean, it's really easy to be a semifinal athlete because those numbers are out there. I would say it's harder to be like a quarterfinal athlete trying to get in because like
it's so easy, dude.
No. As far as like knowing what you need to do, right? So you look at the row handstand walk workout, which is like they broke it down. Also the total bar box jump over workout, like, and then known and knowable broke all those paces down for a lot of people. And it's like the average female pace on the rower is about a 152, and the average male is about a 150 or 146, the average pace, not the top end. And so like, if you're doing rowing intervals, for those distances, which is about, 1,500 meters in total, you need to be able to row that pace, and then the running, you can take the split times for the 800 meter run. And I know it's like 800 ish. It's like F off, like just understand that their mile time is they're running at this mile pace. And if you learn that mile pace in that mixed modal setting, and they're able to do those clean and jerks, 10 of them at that loading in under a minute for most athletes, more other athletes, about 40 seconds. Like that's where you're going to take into your training, and like, as a coach, I'm not going to necessarily prescribe that for you, but it's like, hey, like as an athlete, you need to take some ownership of like, this is my goal. This is what the average human is moving at, it's like, and then try to replicate that in your training for your energy system work or pacing work or you're running. Now, don't kill yourself and go outside your personal pacing, like Harley's saying, like know yourself as an athlete and get your sustainable pace. But you need to know, like, if you're not you're a female or a male, like a male athlete not running a 6-minute mile, it's like, well, that's not good enough. Like, that's not it.
And how do you guys feel about looking at mixed modal work as cyclical work for as long as the loading is appropriate for the given strength metrics, the skills are appropriate for the given skill capacity and endurance for that given athlete, whatever the athlete is? What do you think about like looking at a 4-minute AMRAP as like comparable to a 800-ish meter run or a 1200 meter run?
If an athlete is strong enough and skilled enough, it is, in my opinion, the same thing.
And I agree. I think that within the sport, we need to look at mixed work as cyclical work. And if you look at the best in the sport, they do the best job. That's why they're the best, is because they couldn't take that 185 clean and jerk, come in from a high effort run and just repeat singles, just one after another.
And then go right back into
their run pace. And it's just like a minor speed bump. And
it's like
nothing really changed. Yeah.
It's almost like they're running 1,000 meters versus 800s.
Correct.
Like it's 55 minutes. So like if you watch this long, I'm on and I could be pushed over the fence, but I'm on the fence with like some of my athletes that are at the top, in the Masters, and like some of my people who are at semifinals and trying to break through, literally going strength and aerobic work in the so far end of trying to get them to be like a 130 half marathon runner as a male. And like a 140, 145 female half marathon, like get them so good at that. And same thing with like cycling. Like I have an athlete doing some gravel racing, and I've in the last month and a half to 2 months, like I was already into cycling. I listened to Trainer Road, shout out Trainer Road. It's a good podcast. Those guys are great. But also gravel racing. It's really cool because now I'm learning a ton about that. But like the workouts of gravel racing are the same workout structures as CrossFit mixed modal structures. It's wild. It's just, instead of doing burpees and wall balls and blah, 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 you're just riding a bike. But like, it's literally like, it doesn't say AMRAP, but it's like 3 minutes at zone 4, like 30-second break, 5 sets. It's like how these elite gravel racers train. And then there's like things where it's like 10-minute block, rest, not rest, but easy ride, 10-minute block, easy ride, 10-minute block. It's CrossFit on a bike. So like if you're strong enough, like someone like Jacob Tristan, I would argue like that's where he needs to go with his training. And Jersey JP, the guy that touch and go the snatch on the East, he got on Sevon and said, like, he was on the Colin show and he said, I'm not touching the barbell. I'm gonna work on my gymnastics and endurance and become an endurance racer, because he wants to figure out how he can get that next gear.
Jacob's banned from a barbell for like 6 months. And he's just gonna pound paper. I was joking with him facetiously, but this may literally be what I do. I think I'm gonna have him build to a 275 snatch every 14 days for the next 6 months.
Nice.
Just make sure you can do it, and
then
strength movements. Whatever. Like, I don't care until January or February. And then if he does touch a barbell, it's gonna be for probably no less than 35 to 50 reps. Just break him off on barbells. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we watched him do the run together, as painful as that was. And it's like,
yeah, but his snatch was good.
Dude's got all the skill. He got he got 5th in the snatch with 2 misses at 245, which is stupid. Like, we literally, like, the legless workout, he just couldn't hold the bike pace, and he couldn't do the box jumps as fast. The row, sure, we have some rev speed work that he needs. He needs to be able to handstand walk faster. He rode a 142, which was a competitive row pace. But like, he and I have already talked. His off season is the first benchmark we're working to is a sub 50-minute 10K.
Nice.
And I don't really give a shit about anything else other than that until then. Everything else is just going to be maintenance work.
Yeah.
Like, because he just doesn't have he has so much muscle mass that he doesn't have the capacity to keep it oxygenated for long periods of time. He just blows up.
Yeah.
So,
and that's like true for anybody, like GPP to elite athlete. Like, if you have something that is killing you that much, regardless of the goal, like you have to attack that. If you, like to Tyler's point earlier, like if you don't care, it's like, whatever, don't worry about it. But if you're like, I'm so like, you come in a CrossFit class or you come in to train, or do you do a competition, you always come back and you go, I can't snatch that barbell. I can't clean and jerk that barbell. Or like, oh, we did a running event again and I got last place. Like if you're saying those things out of your mouth, like let's do something about it, you know, and get better. And like, that's the hard like pill to swallow, I think, for some people. Cause like what you're saying is like, yeah, he's still going to do some CrossFit. He's still going to lift weights, but his primary focus is going to be endurance work. And he's going to enjoy that because he wants the goal and he wants to get better.
Do you think for GPP athletes though, like, I don't know, this thought just came to mind. Do they really need, okay, for the athlete who's like, you know, I want my running to be better, or I want my snatch to be a little bit better. Just work on it, like, just work on it once a week. Like you're already getting enough GPP volume that you're gonna get that black box effect, like Greg always talks about. It's like, we're not asking you to do what I'm gonna do to Jacob and make him run 4 days a week. You know what I mean? Because he's an outlier, and what we're chasing is outlier performance. But for a GPP athlete, it's like, hey, like if you want your snatch to be better, just why don't you do some technical snatch work once a week and see what happens? Yeah. It's not a big ask.
Right. But for some people, I feel like they think it's a huge ask. And it's like, it's not really. It's like one time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just frequency, right? Like that's all it is. It just comes down to frequency and then thoughtful progression on a regular basis. To learn any skill, you could take that snatch, you could take that gymnastics, and you take that, you know, if you wanted to go the endurance route, I would say definitely a little bit more than that. But yeah, I mean, just a little more than that.
Well, the crazy thing is Marissa comes in with 150 minutes of aerobic work a week for general pop people, like hard aerobic efforts. And then what they show with that is like, and he thinks if you're genetically inclined, you can get away with that, but everyone else needs closer to 300 minutes, which when you think about that for like a competitive CrossFit athlete, most of them are kind of genetically inclined, but like that's so much time just to improve aerobic work. And I don't think they do research studies on this for strength, but I bet you the numbers would be very similar if you were trying to improve strength versus like a neurological skill. Like you can learn how to do bar muscle ups if you're strong enough and you can hold shapes pretty quickly, like within a day. Like you could go to a seminar, you know, they do it at the level 1 seminar. People get like a strict ring muscle up and it's like, I've never done one of those. It's like, well, they just taught you some technical skill and then you were able to link it together. But as far as like capacity of strength or endurance, you have to spend so much time. And like to Tristan's point is like, if you really want to become very good, you know, there's a huge limiter, like a huge blockade of problems that you're going to face, even if you're GPP, like 150 to 300 minutes a week to improve. That's a ton, right? Jacob probably is going to be on the lower end of that because he's a freak, which is great, but he's still got to do 150 minutes a week. And like you're doing, if you do 2 60-minute sessions, it's only 120 minutes. He needs to now hit another 30-minute session. So like to your point, he's going to run 3 to 4 times a week. That takes up a ton of time and resources for glycogen, his muscles. Like I did a strength session yesterday. Then we were doing the wall balls and running in our IWT. And in the running, my legs felt so heavy. They were trash. And I was just like, oh my God. And it was from the front foot elevated split squats I did yesterday. I know it. And it's just like, if you think like you can do all of this strength training and like this hybrid training, like it's great. People have been doing hybrid training forever. You're not going to get huge adaptations to solve the problems that you have through hybrid training unless you're a freak of nature or you've been doing this for 20 years and you have a huge athletic background of D1 sport. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Well, I think that's why coaches like us always try to remove, at least I think this is how you guys would look at it. We haven't had this conversation yet, but we always try to remove the easiest thing first because it's going to take the least adaptation from your body due to natural inclination. Like, easy example, just because it's on the top of my mind. My freaking fiance will not stop getting stronger. Like, she just won't. It's annoying at this point. And I give her a hard time about it. I give her a hard time about it because for her competitive level, she's about to be topped out on how much I care she can lift. And I give her shit about it, but in reality, as a programmer, since she's only finished her first 5 weeks of her off season, and she's already hit a hang snatch PR and tied a snatch PR with an overhead squat, then I just know, cool, I only have to do this like 2 more times, and then the lifting is gonna vanish basically.
Yeah.
Because then we can just devote all that training time to the stuff she really needs, right? So at least that's how I think about it.
No, it's good. People, that's the point of like the off season. Like to Tyler's point, you got to accumulate this stuff and like picking up the lowest hanging fruit. And it's glaring in your face. Like, you know what you're bad at, and you just got to get better at it. And it can be fun if you like embrace that. I think that's another piece of people like Harley was talking about in general across the board, GPP or elite. It's like, you have to get over the fact that like the boring stuff or it's not fun or this and that. It's like, how do you make it fun? You know, like how do you find a game in it? How do you change your mindset to be like, how do I play within this thing? Like if you hate endurance or you hate running, like figure out how you can love running. If you're, you know, you don't enjoy the 5x5 back squat, that doesn't fire you up, figure out how you can do that. Is that like, you got to buy a new belt and lifting shoes or like whatever motivates you? And then just like, you know, and then I hate this a little bit because sometimes people go too far, but like identify as a strength athlete. You know, it's like Paige, she's like, yeah, fridge season. And I make the joke. I'm like, you're a giraffe in the wild, dude. Good luck. Like you're so long. But she's embraced like this idea of fridge season and like getting bigger and stronger, you know, it's good. I like that. I think sometimes you can take that way too far and you got to be careful with that, but it's a good way to get yourself hyped up and get what you want.
I mean, I think you would like this. I was talking to Jacob before semifinals. He was at the gym doing some lifting, and he had some back squat work or whatever, and it was at a little over 350 pounds or this, that, and the other. And he goes like, oh, and I was like, that's not that heavy for you. And he looked at me and he said, dude, the weight's always heavy. I can just move it still.
Yeah.
And like he's a very strong kid, but it's kind of to that point, like he knows he's strong and he believes he's strong, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
Correct.
Right? Like good runners know that we're good runners, but it doesn't mean that running fast 400s feels great when I feel like I'm going to vomit. Right? Like,
yeah.
It's like,
that's so good.
That is true.
That's why, like, for, you know, selfish anecdote, like people talk about me deadlifting and they're like, oh, but you're good at it. I'm like, it fries me. Like it zaps my whole body, my experience, my existence. I am like lightheaded and feel like I'm going to throw up after I run at max. Can probably almost PR every time because I just choose to put more on the bar, but I'm going to just like die trying, you know, like I don't want to anymore. And that's why I literally do it once a year and no more frequently than that because there's no point. Literally no.
I think if most CrossFitters really sat down and thought about that though, like even GPP athletes have a wheelhouse of some sort.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, nothing makes me more nervous than when I go to CrossFit Greater Heights and I'm doing the class workout the day and it's all my jam. Because I'm like, oh, I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to slow me down.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah.
But you're going to get that top floor and you're going to feel cool about it.
We've talked about this, dude. There's like, I think once you get that good, like, yeah, even in competitions, you look at a workout, you know you're going to do it. I think athletes get more nervous about the workout that they're going to crush than the ones. Yeah. And like almost to the point where like they're going to vomit. I think that's why Matt Fraser definitely like threw up before every event because he knew what was coming. He knew it was going to be hard. And he also knew he was going to be the best at it. Yep. And so like, that's, you know, understanding that in your off season. I mean, we can talk more about the off season, but I think in general, that gave a good spot. Like you're going to focus on your weaknesses. You're going to really drive into those things, change your movement mechanics, not talk back to your coach. And you're going to try new things when we tell you, hey, try this standard or try this new squat position or hand position or how you climb the rope. And you're going to change these things and you're going to try it 1,000 times before you say, I don't like it. You know, eat your vegetables, like Tristan said. And you're going to build a mental resilience to the fact that it's not fun. It is hard. And then try to figure out how you can identify, like Paige, be a fridge, even though you're a giraffe. and enjoy the process of training to improve yourself. Because even if you don't even if you get small amount of gains, the fact that you're going down this road of like, I'm bad at strength, or I'm bad at endurance, or I'm bad at gymnastics, I'm going to focus on that. 6 months is not a long time to try and get better. And if you get a return, you will get more fit. You've increased your capacity and you can express it more in the things that you love. So it's like the delay, of instant gratification to really get a huge gain. And I think people need to realize that now in the off season. That's like a mantra you want to put on your fridge or your mirror or whatever, and just like over and over and over. Like, I'm delaying what I enjoy and I'm going to endure the pain so I can get maximum gain in the next 6 months. And just work. Or longer than 6 months. Some people have a longer off season than that. I was going to say, Marissa put this in. Me doing 7-minute 2K and Todd saying it's easy. That's on the road.
Hey,
I said that was easy.
My fiance can empathize with her entirely. Every time I go run with Courtney, I just run with her and we finish, and she's mad at me because I'm not as tired. I'm like,
No. Marissa's very aerobic, dude. I was really happy the other day. We went out. She's starting 2025 season. She's looking for a few good men, if anybody knows anybody. And they train it, man. She's getting after it. But we went out running, and I was like, oh yes, this is like one of the only times I'm gonna be fitter than you. Because she was like huffing and puffing, but she's getting back to it. She didn't have smash. Like she's done like 2 running sessions. And I was like, dude, it's over. I don't want to run with you anymore.
days are numbered.
I got 1 session. I was like, yes. It's crazy. It's wild. People are fit. That's another thing. You don't lose your fitness too.
Yeah.
You really don't. If you have acquired stuff, you don't lose your fitness. Like, and I mean, Marissa having a baby and seeing some of the things that she's done, and not only her, but other people in the community, whether you agree or disagree with where that's at and how hard they go or not, doesn't matter. The point is, like, those people took time off, grew a human inside of them, then got that human out, and are now putting up numbers that are anywhere from 80 to 90% of what they used to be. So if you can take 9 months off, grow a human, and like train for maintenance and health, you'll be okay taking 6 months to work on your weaknesses, because you're training hard.
Or you can take a month off after semifinal season.
Oh yeah, take a month off. Yeah, you could take a month off. People take 9 months off.
Yeah.
Or a week, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something to learn. Like, that's something that really opened up my eyes. And I've known it before, but like watching the process, and like, you can take time off. This goes for men too. You get injured, something happens, you got to get a job or whatever. Like, anything happens to you, it's like, you're going to be fine. You've acquired a lot of fitness. You just got to come back to it and like get over that emotional thing of like, oh no, I'm going to be so unfit. It's like, no, you'll be fine. Just give it a week or 2.
I didn't know you were going to lecture me at the end of this, but thanks.
Yeah, you'll be fine, dude. I got back to it. I almost died today. It's okay.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I died on Saturday.
You did die. And
I
then
almost DNF'd. I sat down. A 15-year-old boy came over. 14-year-old boy came over to me and was like, "You're not a quitter, coach." And I was like, "Oh, you're right." I was sitting down. I had a whole nother
tears
round.
rolling out of his eyes, tears rolling down his cheeks, drool coming out of his mouth.
Dude, I sat down on the bench and I was like, I'm done. I'm toasted. Like, I coached the 2 classes, come back from semifinals. Like, I just can't do this last little bit.
You also need to eat, because you're on the carries, and we were at the same spot, and you're like, I'm not okay. And I was like, did you eat anything? And you're like, nope.
I picked them up and I went and carried them. But yeah, then I sat down and a 14-year-old Luca comes over and pep talks me, and I finished the workout.
You don't need to eat. You're at the weight buffet. Eat that.
That's good.
No, you have to eat.
That's amazing.
Thank God for Luca.
Yeah, I mean, that's other off-season considerations real quick. Little pieces like new equipment. You guys want to try new shoes, lifters, belts, straps, grips, whatever. This is now the time to get those things, try them out, test things out. Don't do that right before the open. Don't change anything up. So do it now. Figure it out. Running shoes. Get a good pair of running shoes. Find a nutrition coach if you don't have one. I mean, most of us for performance, like, we're going to give you baseline, macronutrients, kind of give you some guidance, but like, our job is to make you perform and get better at fitness. And the behavioral lifestyle guidelines. It's like, if I'm telling you to drink water, I'm telling you to sleep, I'm telling you to eat these macronutrients and real whole foods, like that's enough. But nutrition stuff goes so far, psychologically, emotionally. That's why there are individual nutrition coaches who just do that. It's huge. So like, unless you're like me, where like my wife, she's a nutrition coach, she tells me, eat this, do this, here are your macros, and I'm like on it. And then I, every now and again have a cinnamon roll, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, having a cinnamon roll. Or like this morning, I was like, I'm eating sourdough bread. I don't care, but then everything else the rest of the day is like fine. And some people are like that. And some people it's like, it's not, it's, you go off the rails, everything else, you need a lot of support. If that's you and you've maybe tried it yourself, or you've had a coach before and you just weren't really honest with yourself about it. I mean, that the nutrition, the fueling, it makes all the difference in the world. And sleep. So sleep and nutrition are number one. Try to figure that out in the off season, because you trying to figure it out in the in season because you want an extra boost is not the way to do it. You need to do it now, figure it out. And then if you still need the support and everything else during season, do that. Like those are huge things in the off season, to find somebody, because you might need to go through 2 or 3 different coaches. You never know. Like coach personality doesn't align all the time. Like figure those things out. Don't make huge changes, but try stuff if you haven't already. And then, that's really it. I think, unless you guys add to that.
Did you guys talk about, before I jumped on here, fix your shit? If you got something going on, like,
if you got something going on, see a PT, get real help, chiropractors, like change your movement mechanics. Like you need to get MRIs, like now's the time, like figure it out.
If you dinged up, get undinged up now, because it ain't going to get any better later.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And be honest with your coach too. Like sometimes people don't say anything. They let it go on too long. Like don't get over. Sometimes people can get over the end about an injury, and then that's problematic too. Like psychologically, you're like really deep in this. I'm an injured person, and there's a ton of books about it. There's a ton of psychology about it. You can identify, like how Paige identifies as a fridge. You could identify as an injured person all the time. And then, that becomes problematic too, because that holds you back. You may actually have something really wrong with you, and you need to talk to a professional and figure it out so you don't do more damage.
If you have a serious concern, definitely go get a professional opinion and use resources in your community that you trust. That said, if you are just on the fence about it, or you have like little aches, pains, joint pains here and there, just have a conversation with us, your coach, and ideally we can just add in adjustments to, or make adjustments to your accessory work that is helpful for the problematic areas, as long as they're comfortable with that. Of course, if they're not, they'll let you know, go see a professional. It's easy to be a hypochondriac and think you're broken all over the place, because this is a hard pain sport and it leaves us beat up. And that's the nature of the game we're playing. So ride the line of like, I'm tough, I can be resilient. But if you get to the point where you truly have a concern, let it be known.
Yeah. Or you could be like me and just ignore it. It'll go away in a week.
My guy.
Don't do that. We were doing, I don't know, like a month ago now, we're doing like pistols, and we got a huge pop in my knee. And like, I couldn't even squat below parallel. Yeah, no, that's the approach I took. I had somebody look at me though. I had someone look at me, and they were like, "Oh, you're fine. It's probably in your calf." I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I squatted yesterday. I squat snatched and stuff." But like, literally, that's what I do though. I'll be like, "I'm fine," and I'll tell no one and just keep it to myself, and then just like, let's see if it goes away.
Then you hobble downstairs like an old man.
It's okay. It's okay. It'll be fine. Don't do that.
No judgment.
I have terrible pistols. My ankle mobility is next to zero, thanks to 15 years of soccer and rolling my ankle basically every day. And anytime I've done pistols in a competition, there's always been somebody. It's been because I just do them on my toes, and I do them quick. Like I'm still really excited, strong enough leg that's quick at them. The amount of people who would come up to say like, "How do you do pistols on your toes like that?" or this, that, and the other, and I would just tell them the secret ingredient is knee pain.
Yeah.
Like that's the secret ingredient, bro. Like just is what it is.
Nice.
And now I don't do pistols. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Learn from our mistakes. Again, cutting the curve. Don't do it. We've done it. It's not a good idea. Don't do it. We're here to help you.
I promise you don't need to squat every day to get stronger, because I did.
I did that too.
I think we've all done that.
Dude, I hit an all-time lifetime PR in like 2018 for back squat after a squatting every day cycle. I didn't PR again until this year. So that was like 7 years of not hitting a back squat PR.
I back squatted
for sure.
I back squatted 405 less than a year after I had my ACL reconstructed, which was a 20-pound lifetime PR.
Sick.
See, you can come back, people. You don't lose fitness. You can come back. So fix your stuff so you don't have to.
I don't think that was the message he was trying to say. I think he was
yeah,
trying to say be conservative.
I mean, kind of both. Fix your stuff, but also maybe don't squat every day and be that aggressive. It's okay.
Yeah. All right. Well,
cool.
That's pretty good. Anybody got anything else?
I have a call in 9 minutes, so I'm going to have to get off here.
Any closing thoughts?
Thanks for having me on.
Season is ready and rolling. I'm excited.
Yep.
Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Tell your friends.
Yes, please.
See y'all.